Yeah, man. So I checked out the Sting Into the Light DVD. I checked it out on Blu-ray. Fantastic documentary, and I definitely got to give a shout out to my girlfriend. I was at work and I had said to her, hey, can you do me a solid? Can you pick up the new Sting DVD? And she said, yeah, sure, no problem. And as I was looking up nearby stores that had the DVD, I saw that there was extremely limited stock in like the whole DMV area. So I sent her a screenshot of what all I was looking at, and I told her, I said, if you're going to get the DVD, get it ASAP, check out this image. And she was like, wow, that's insane. She's like, well, luckily I already got it. And then I found out later on from her, apparently what was like on hand. She apparently had grabbed one of only 2 Blu-rays that was left, and there was like maybe 3 standard copies. And bear in mind, I think at the time that she went to Best Buy. At the time that she went, it was like probably maybe 11 o'clock in the morning. And if you know your Best Buys, most Best Buys don't open until like 10 in the morning. I seriously doubt they had that many on the shelf to begin with. You know what I'm saying? And it's just interesting. And I don't know if you guys maybe have noticed it as well, but I mean, I would say like in the past 10 years, the quantity, the volumes of WWE DVDs, it has really decreased significantly. I can remember a time where I would like walk into a Best Buy, or I'd walk into a Walmart, I'd walk into a Target, I'd walk into a Kmart, and there would be like a shitload of WWE DVDs. There would be so many WWE DVDs at whichever store. There'd be like some type of a sale going on where they had so many copies of one particular DVD. They sold it for like $5. So you got away with like a real steal or some shit like that. And like as the years progressed, like it just started to become less and less and less, that it just got down to a point where you're like, hey, well, I know for sure they're going to have this at Kmart, because remember, WWE did that exclusive contract deal with Kmart to carry WWE merchandise. But even at that, as the years have progressed, it's not as massive as it started off as. Now it's like a very, very small section of figures, DVDs and all that. I mean, it's just, I don't know. It's like now the new norm is to just try to go and look for stuff online or go on WWE Shop or whatever. But for the whole DMV area, it was only available at Best Buy, not at Target, only at Best Buy. I thought that was like really weird in itself, but checked out the DVD, the documentary, man. It is just freaking fantastic. I really loved it. I haven't even got to the matches yet, but I will tell you all the matches. But you know, this was a very well-produced documentary. Sting dominated from basically start to finish. I mean, it was great hearing little thoughts and opinions from Jim Ross, Diamond Dallas Page, Scott Hall, who apparently had a very instrumental part in the Crow version of Sting. We also saw Lex Luger on there. There was some old footage that looked as though it wasn't used on previous Warrior specials of the Ultimate Warrior, saying some things about Sting that they showed exclusively on here. Warrior popped up a couple of times, talked for only a few seconds, but it was nice to see him in there. Hulk Hogan actually made a few appearances on here. I was watching this with my girl and I said, oh, shit. I said, this must have went down before the racist comments, and we started busting up laughing. Oh my God. So many great people like popped up in this thing. Jerry Jarrett popped up. Those of you that might be a little bit curious, no, Vince McMahon did not pop up, which I thought was a little bit odd. I mean, Triple H, he definitely popped up. He was talking more than once throughout this thing about Sting. I thought for sure Vince McMahon was gonna pop up, because I was looking for him to just pop up for like maybe like a grand total of 5 minutes and just basically talk about from his perspective how much he wanted Sting on his roster. And, it just really would have been nice to hear from the horse's mouth just what exactly was his intentions in trying to bring Sting on board in the WWE. Was it to basically kind of stiff WCW, or did he truly believe he could basically make himself, WWE, and Sting a shitload of money by doing business with the Stinger? So I kind of wish he would have popped up and said his piece in that regard, but he did not. I checked out the Easter eggs and all that. That's on no Vince McMahon cameo whatsoever. A little bit unfortunate, but still overall fantastic DVD. And another thing that I had liked about this was, it was, one thing that I really, really came away from was just the joy that Sting had when he finally signed a WWE contract. For those of you that may not know, when he did the whole Comic-Con thing and he was doing all those one-off appearances, doing an exclusive interview on WWE.com, he was not under a contract. When he did his thing at last year's Survivor Series pay-per-view event, he basically signed a contract for just that night only, which was valid for 4 hours. He did not sign a WWE contract until like 3 months after the Survivor Series event. So you hear that, you're like, wow, what the hell? He was really taking his time, weighing his options, trying to figure out if signing with the WWE was really something that he wanted to do. And as we learned during this documentary, he had many opportunities to come on over to the WWE. By his own admission, he candidly talked about how he had many phone conversations with Vince McMahon, and it just seemed like there was a few times where it came pretty close and it just came up short. It was interesting hearing him say that once WCW had folded, how he wished that his career could have been over at that point, but it wasn't. And like, when you hear that the first time, you're like, nah, he didn't just go there, did he? And then when you rewind it again and you listen to him say that again, I mean, I know he's like a born again Christian and everything, but to hear him say that, I just couldn't help but say, damn, he must really not appreciate how TNA had did him. Because when you hear that, you're like, okay, so Sting in a nice, polite way just basically took a massive dump on the 10 years plus that he was over in TNA wrestling by that comment that he made, that if he could have had it his way when WCW had their last Nitro, that was it for him. He would have just rode off into the sunset. That would have been it. And then I guess when WWE came a call in, boom, he goes to WWE. He did acknowledge TNA. Talk about very controversial right here. If you were following me on Twitter, I had revealed this information as I was watching the sneak preview for the DVD Monday night. He basically, the way it had came up, he said, I wish my career would have ended there, but it didn't. I went to TNA for about, X amount of years, and, boom, here we are now. And it was like, wow, this is like the first time in WWE DVD history that TNA is officially recognized. And I just thought that was very, very interesting. I thought that was kind of cool, because I was like, when I was watching it on the network and I heard that, because I think, I was watching it by myself. When I saw that, I was like, there's no way in hell that's going to make the DVD. I get the DVD. It's on the DVD. TNA, clear as day, coming out of his mouth. I'm like, wow, okay, interesting. But on the flip side to that, you just kind of really picked up, in my mind, I kind of picked up disappointment in the way that he was treated by TNA wrestling. And if it is disappointment that I was picking up, I totally feel where he was coming from. I mean, when you just look at that final year that he was involved in TNA wrestling, just think back a little bit. he basically had reformed the Main Event Mafia to take out the Aces and Eights. And then shortly after that, he began feuding with Ethan Carter III. Because remember how, for you TNA fans, remember how that all had came about. Ethan Carter III, he had began a series of humiliating TNA legends. You know, he was like doing crap to, I remember Curry Man. He also was messing around with Earl Hebner, and basically, Sting got in the face of Ethan Carter, and he was like, look, I'm tired of seeing you bully around people. Somebody needs to teach you some manners or whatever. And I remember there was like a Feast or Fired. It was around Feast or Fired. Chavo Guerrero had the briefcase that got him a pink slip. Basically, long story short, from what I remember, Sting had lost to Ethan Carter III in like one of a couple of matches that they had. And then the very last match that Sting had, it was against Magnus. Because remember, at that point, AJ Styles, he was like on his way out the door, and you basically had like TNA champion versus TNA champion, and AJ Styles, he pretty much was done with TNA, so basically he came back for a couple of weeks just to basically put over Magnus as the ultimate, undisputed TNA champion. And eventually Sting had did a program with Magnus where basically it was a title versus career match. If Sting lost, then his TNA career would be over. So as of January 23rd, 2014, that was Sting's last match in TNA wrestling. And for a guy that just put his blood, his sweat, his tears out there for the promotion, yeah, he might have had those sweet ass schedules as he got older and he'd pop up for a couple of weeks or work a couple of months here and there, and then he'd be off for a couple of months and rinse, repeat or whatever. He still spent a good majority of time there in TNA wrestling. You talk about dedication. You talk about being loyal to an employer. Sting was that to his fullest extent. And the fact that TNA, they didn't like really, they should have put him on a pedestal and been like, Sting, for everything that you've done for the TNA wrestling promotion, we just want to let you know we really appreciate you. We appreciate everything that you've done for us. You know, thank you so much. For him to just go out the way that he went out, that just really kind of said to me that TNA kind of got to that point where, and I can kind of look at it from their side if it was a standpoint of, well, you know what? He's got a very, very lucrative contract. If we were to cut ties with him, it would free up X amount of money so that we can go after XYZ. But I mean, either way, you should just really end it on such a good note that nothing bad is said, you know? Now here's a main reason why I'm talking so long about TNA. And I'm going to jump to the chase here. I think, and I believe I'm the only guy that's going to be saying this on my respected show. Some people, some of you fellow podcasters, my fellow colleagues out there, y'all may call me crazy for saying this, but I know just a little bit enough about the law to know, Houston, we may have a problem here. Now, here's the problem. Remember the date I told you. Sting had his last match in TNA wrestling January 23rd of 2014. By Sting's own admission on his Into the Light DVD, he said that him and Paul Levesque, aka Triple H, began talking, trying to iron out some type of a deal for Sting to come into the WWE as early as December of 2013. So now comes the $1 million question. From December 2013 to his last match in TNA wrestling, which aired, I guess, January 23rd of 2014, because if we were to just rewind the clock a little bit, and I'm actually going to rewind the clock, And let's see if we can go back. Let's see if we can go back. I'm going to type in January 23rd, 2014, and we'll see what day of the week that was. Looks like that was on a Thursday, January 23rd. Yep, it was a Thursday. So you know how TNA at that point, they were taping many episodes in advance. Now I'm trying to recall if maybe TNA might have been live, because I know at that point they were still on Spike TV. I know there were a lot of episodes that they were airing live. I'm not really sure if they were live at that point. But see, here's where the discrepancy comes in right now, is when exactly did Sting's contract with TNA lapse? Did it lapse before the end of December? Because I think that's very critical right there. And here's the reason why. Because if Sting was talking to Triple H to try to get some type of a deal together to come into the WWE, and as all this was going on, he was still under contract to TNA, then guess what? TNA has a lawsuit in their hands. They can take WWE to court, assuming that the limitations of stature is the phrase I believe it is, as far as like when you can, basically to sum up what that terminology means, how long of a period you have to try to file paperwork to take that individual or that party or that organization, that business to court. So I don't know, man. I don't know. If I'm TNA, if I'm the legal team department, I'm dissecting this tape, and just the way Sting said, when me and Paul, we first started talking in 2013, and his eyes went kind of like bug wild, and he kind of looked around, and he kind of had like this rollover look in his face as he said that, and the way he emphasized it, it was kind of like you put two and two together. We were talking while I was still in TNA. So it's like, if that's the case, then it's kind of like, cause in the past, TNA and WWE, there was a lawsuit or two going on here and there. I remember there was one where TNA had said that somebody that they had hired, that eventually they let go, was giving away precious sensitive information to the WWE on how they operate. And if you remember, there was like a freeze as far as WWE talents that were let go, TNA talents that were let go, because nobody wanted to touch the other person's released talents until they had got their lawsuit squashed or whatever. And they did settle out of court. But you hear that, you're kind of like, so, just peep that out. But fantastic documentary. I mean, they really, WWE, they did a superb job. When I just think about all the DVDs that have come out this year for the WWE, as much as I enjoyed the Jerry Lawler one, I don't know, man, this Sting one, it really, really edges out to me. But man, it's got any and everything that you would want to learn about Sting. Fantastic. It's definitely a must grab. Now, I know that there's a TNA Sting DVD that's floating around where he candidly had talked about the few times that him and Vince had talked, why he didn't sign and things of that nature. I haven't reviewed it yet. I'll probably try to see if I can maybe check that out on the weekend, and I'll definitely follow up on whether or not that's something that you should check out. But I will say this, match quality wise, I know some of you are like, well, Lee, why the fuck didn't this Into the Light DVD come out before the best of Sting that WWE released? I think for very good reason. I think the way, and I was pretty upset originally when the best of Sting had came out. I thought it was kind of silly, but I thought about it a little bit more, and it made sense from the standpoint of, if they were going to do any type of a Sting DVD, then it made the perfect sense that they went with a best of compilation, just to try to see what type of buzz they were able to get from it all throughout social media. Also, I'm sure they were paying attention to how well that the DVD was selling. And when it was all said and done, that Best of Sting, it did sell well enough for them to do a follow-up. And in this case, Sting Into the Light. So I think they actually played it very, very smart. They wanted to test the waters with the Best of compilation, paid off. And this is how we end up where we are right now. A lot of extras that's on here, extra stories. You guys will just love that. My personal favorite story is, I actually had like the behind the scenes ID shoot. And it was really cool seeing Sting arrive at the WWE headquarters and just all the different departments that he was visiting while he was at WWE, ultimately leading to him crossing paths with Paul Levesque. Apparently, they also had met with Vince. They did not show us that. I wish they would have shown us that. That would have been freaking badass. But, Sting, just the vibe that he was giving me on this, he was just so happy. He just really came off like, man, why didn't I do this sooner? He just seems like a kid again. And at the same time, I just can't help but go, damn, it sucks that this guy got injured by Seth Rollins, as we're now kind of hearing that Sting might be done. Apparently he did a Q&A over in Scotland over the weekend, and one of the questions that was brought up was, how's it looking for him returning to the ring? He thinks that he's done. His doctors, they're telling him he doesn't need to get back into the ring again. He's going to try to see if he can get clearance to come back, but the way it's looking right now, he may be done. And I mean, honestly, 56 going on 57, I mean, if he was 10 years younger, maybe I could entertain the idea of him getting in there a little bit more. But one thing that is consistent on this DVD is his passion for, hey, I just want to get to WrestleMania, just to say that I had a WrestleMania match. I mean, how many people do you know get the opportunity to say that? Just the fact that he just wanted to have a WrestleMania moment and just be over and done with. I mean, he was very content. At the end of the documentary, he was very content. He's like, you know what? I think I'm done. I think I went out on the note that I wanted to go out on. Yeah, so if he can help it, I'm sure he's going to try to come back and do one more match and just go out on that note. One thing that was kind of overlooked, which I wish they would have talked about a little bit more, is just exactly what was going on in, what was that, 2011, when it looked as though they were coming pretty close to acquiring Sting. Because remember, it looked as though we were finally going to see Sting take on The Undertaker. Remember that? We had, what was it, 2011 or something like that? I wish they would have gone in depth about that a little bit more. Matches you get from Memphis Wrestling, 1985, Freedom Fighters versus David Johnson and The Invader. From Mid-South Wrestling, 1986, Blade Runners versus Tracy Smothers and Ricky Gibson. From UWF, 1987, Sting and Rick Steiner versus Brad Armstrong and Tim Horner. NWA Clash of the Champions, 1988, NWA World Title Match, Sting versus Ric Flair. For you Great Muta fans, WCW Japan Super Show in 1991, Sting versus Great Muta. WCW Super Brawl 1991 for the WCW tag titles, Lex Luger, Sting versus the Steiner Brothers. For you Cactus Jack fans out there, WCW Worldwide 1991 Submit or Surrender match, Sting versus Cactus Jack. Going over to Disc 2, you have NWA Clash of the Champions 21 from 1992. King of Cable tournament match, Sting versus Ravishing Rick Rude. From WCW Slamboree 1994. You have a WCW International World Heavyweight Championship match, Sting versus Vader. WCW Saturday Night, Sting versus Stunning Steve. WCW Nitro 1995, Sting versus Hulk Hogan. WCW Great American Bash 1998, winner gets both WCW Tag Championship belts, Sting versus the Giant. WCW Nitro 1998, WCW World Heavyweight title, Sting versus Goldberg. Rounding it off, WCW Nitro April 26, 1999, World Championship match, Sting versus Diamond Dallas Page. WCW Nitro October 18th, 1999, WCW World Heavyweight Championship match, Sting versus Bret Hart. Fast forward a little bit, November 23rd, 2014, Sting's WWE debut, WrestleMania 31, Sting versus Triple H. So for those of you that are looking to bypass WrestleMania 31 and you just want to watch Sting versus Triple H, this is actually a pretty damn good compilation right here. Got some Blu-ray exclusives. You got the NWA Clash of the Champions. I can't see the year. It looks like 1988. Sting and the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes versus Arn Anderson and Tully Blanchard. That should be good. WCW Saturday Night, King of Cable tournament match, Sting versus Flying Brian Pillman. Oh, that's going to be a good one right there. I kind of remember that one. WCW Nitro from 96, Sting versus Scott Steiner. WCW Stampede, United States Championship tournament match, Sting versus Booker T. WWE Fastlane, Sting and Triple H face-to-face confrontation, March 23rd, 2015, Sting Speaks. So check that out. And hey, if you checked out the Sting Into the Light DVD, I definitely want to hear from you. Want to know how much you had liked it, or maybe you disliked it. I definitely want to hear from you.